again for another indie comic review, and in this I'll be covering Peter J. Tomasi's Blood Tree and Parrot's Rogue Sun. So one is an issue 1 and the other one is an issue 10. So I'll get things organized for the one that I'll be covering first. And that is Peter Tomasi's Blood Tree. So starting off with first things first, does this cover in any way, shape, or form connect to something that is happening inside with the story? Sure enough, it does, to which I give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's now time to move to have a look at the internal art, along with some of the things that are happening story-wise. And as the story begins, we meet up with Detective Azaro and his son Alex. And in the event, his son has just lost a fish, but we assume that there's a little bit more happening there. Things continue, and we move into New York City. And a lot of this actually takes place in New York. As the story continues, we see a bit of a message here, as we don't really know who the main villain is in the story. And they're left with a message, or there's a message that connects to the person who committed suicide, which is very sad. And the message is blood begets blood, and we slowly learn that there's a bit of a mystery around that. We also move into the family, to where they investigate the home to see if there was anything happening there. We move into the police precinct, to where he works at Central Park, and we meet Captain Hughes. Really good introductory into Captain Hughes. You can see he's a busy man. As things advance in the story, the kids end up going to their grandparents' place. And as this is occurring, we've got them attending the Gracie Mansion, or the parents attending Gracie Mansion. But whilst this is happening, someone's gone to the cemetery in the Bronx. The story continues as we get to see more as to what's happening there. And we start to learn a little bit more about the thing that's called the Blood Tree. As the story moves to the end, we see that the son has lost another pet, but there's also some questions as to, is the son killing these pets on purpose, or is he just doing it out of maybe too much love towards the animal, thinking it's the right thing and not knowing it's the wrong thing? So it sort of leaves that as a bit of a shadow in the story of what might appear later. So for the internal art, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Thank you, Peter J. Tomasi. This was actually quite enjoyable just to check out the art in this. Next, we move into the area of the story, seeing that this is a new series. There's no need for comic references at the moment. So the first area we're going to cover is time. Now, what we see in this issue goes over a bit of a time period of around 2 weeks. And we also see that being brought up by Detective Azaro. So moving into the next thing, and that is location. Now, the place where the Azaros live are in Warwick, New York. We also travel to New York City and Central Park. We, of course, had the Gracie Mansion and the Woodlawn Cemetery. and of course the Azaro home, and there was just one more little place that I had written here. Sorry about that, because of my bad handwriting. This is why I like to use a computer for that type of stuff. Moving into the cast of characters, we had Alex, to which we got to meet the son. We haven't found out the daughter's name yet. We have Detective Azaro, who is his dad. We had Maria Diaz, or Detective Maria Diaz, as to who he works with. And we also had Captain Hughes, and also the family connected in this, in regards to the person who had committed suicide. The overall story rating I give to this is a 7.5 out of 10. I think it's enough for me to check out the next issue. And thank you, Peter J. Tomasi, for this story. Now it's time to move on to Rogue Sun. As in this one, things take a slightly different turn. And starting off with the cover, first things first, does this cover indicate something that's happening inside of the story? It does, to which I give a 7.5 out of 10. Moving into the beginning of the story, we learn of someone who has used the sun crystal before. He's known as the Night Sun, and his name is Caleb Hawthorne. And this sort of connects to something that happened in the last issue, to which Ori and Brock did something with the Rogue Sun crystal to prevent Dylan from finding it, and now they've sort of like unlocked one of the first people who've actually used the sun crystal, and now Dylan has a ye-old chivalrous man helping him out on how to use the crystal. But you also get to see a bit of a connection between the past and the present. And you learn, I think it was 500 to 700 years have taken place since the first one used it. And of course, you get to see the brother and sister, and yes, they're in trouble because of what they done could have caused a lot of harm because of Ori using magic. As things continue, he moves to the jeweler, and there's a bit of a discussion also linking to what Caleb Hawthorne, the Night Sun, shared with him, and how that plays a part. And she's pretty sure that one of them has a connection to this particular group. As the story continues, we get to learn a little bit more about sort of like his time as a knight, but also some of the people connected to his past. And surprise, surprise, we move into a location called the Aviary. And this is sort of like where it ends it. So for the internal art, I gave it an 8 out of 10. Now it's time to move into the story. First things first, did we get any comic book references to any of the previous issues? No, we didn't. I think it's time you start using them, Parrot. Because if you don't, you're going to have people getting a little bit confused with where things have come from in your story writing. We had the present day. Moving into the location, we had the Bell Estate, we had Crescent City, we had the medical center, again in Crescent City, along with the high school. We had the jewelry store, which is something that's come in from the earlier issues. And last but not least, the place known as the Aviary of Secrets, which was shown towards the end. Moving into the cast of characters, we had Caleb Hawthorne, the Night Son. We, of course, had Dylan, who's the Rogue Son. We, of course, Juliet, Ori, Brock, Byron, one of Dylan's friends, Raven Queen, who we learn is connected to Caleb Hawthorne. And last but not least, Hunter, who went to see his dad in hospital, and his dad is actually quite upset because he decided to join the family business. And Dad's not impressed with that because he didn't want his son to be involved with him in the first place, seeing that he's waking up out of his coma. For the overall story rating, I give it an 8 out of 10. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.